Hello viewers, I just had a bit of a dream this afternoon. I was sleeping because I work night shift, so I sleep during the daytime, and it was an interesting and disturbing dream. I've actually had it before, and prior to that, I've been sort of pondering, my life situation, where it's at the moment, and thinking that as a Christian, you get the feeling sometimes that you're being held back or being restricted in this life, or that you're missing out on things that other people are doing, or other things that people have or get to do, um, and you just debate it with God. Why is that the case? Why do I appear to be missing out on things, being held back? And I just looked at a Bible verse a moment ago. It's Matthew 28-30. Where Jesus is talking about going to him. He says, "Come to me, all you who seek rest." And he talks about a yoke. The idea of a yoke was something that's kind of in animal husbandry. Animals like oxes would be yoked. It's a device they put on the animal which kind of to some extent limits its or restricts its movement, controls it, basically, I believe. So the idea of being yoked, we're being sort of controlled to some extent or restricted in our movements by God. But in Matthew 28-30, he's saying that his yoke is light and his burden is easy. He talks about that it's good for us because he teaches us, and that he has a humble and a meek soul. So this is the kind of teaching that we're getting, to be humble and meek people. But God is controlling us, helping us, guiding us with his yoke. So sure, we do feel different to the rest of the people in the world. We do feel as though we are yoked, that we are restricted in our movements and things like that, or what we can do, or can't do. And in my dream, because I have a cat, I saw my cat, and he was bound in ropes, like tied with multiple ropes around him, restricting his movements. And I felt like I was untying his ropes. I saw that he was bound and restricted, so I reached down and I untied his ropes. And then he ran out of the ropes and started running away and disappearing, and I was chasing him, calling out to him, but he disappeared, and he ended up down some seedy kind of back street somewhere, and I was chasing him through these seedy back streets and calling out his name, and then I saw him, and he was in the or a cat that looked like him, and he was in the arms of some person, some woman or something, had captured him or whatever, and he was caught in her arms, sort of thing. And then I woke up from the dream, and it was, quite sort of disturbing, and I wondered what that meant. And just reflecting upon, the verse in Matthew that I was talking about, and my own thoughts and feelings that I'd been thinking about prior to this dream, I realised the symbolic revelation of it is such that if I take the place of my cat in the dream, so instead of my cat being tied and bound, if I think of myself as that person, as being tied and bound in a sense, or yoked, as the Bible talks about, being restricted in my movement and freedoms, then, and if that's what I'm doing, with my cat, if I'm tying and binding my cat, because I do, I restrict his movements. He's not allowed outside of my yard, or the flat here. I don't want him getting out onto the street, because any number of things could happen. He could be run over by a car. He could be abducted by somebody and sold or whatever. He could be attacked by animals, die of dehydration or lack of food, any of a number of things, poisoned, trapped. Any number of horrible things could happen. So by providing a home for my cat here, I'm acting as a loving parent, loving, sheltering, looking after my pet, which is me loving my pet. So as a sort of a parent of my pet, I provide a shelter, so to speak. The house and the yard are a shelter. And my cat is free to do whatever he likes within the shelter that I provide, but he risks self-harm going outside of that. So in fact, the love and the shelter that I provide is the best thing. It's the best life for my cat. If he doesn't break outside of the bonds of the place that I provided, he will have a happy and prosperous and healthy life, within the yoke of my love. But if he goes outside of it, he's going to end up in a horrible situation, in trouble, and hurt, and all those sort of things. So the love and the shelter and the protection that I provide here gives him the freedom to be the cat that he is best, that is best for him. He's going to reach his potential as a cat that is the best thing for him. He can be himself as a cat, freely here without risk of harm. So it's the same situation for us. God does the same thing with us. He yokes us, he binds us, he restricts some of the things that we might consider freedoms, things that we want to do, but in fact are the wrong thing for us to do. So even though we want to do certain things, get involved with certain people, certain activities, these things are not necessarily good for us and don't necessarily bring freedom. In fact, they're more likely to bring trouble and something that will enslave us. So that's what God is doing in our lives. So he's providing this shelter for us, this house of God, where he loves us, protects us, shelters us, yokes us for our own good, that we can rest in that and do what is best for us. So we've just got to get out of that mindset, as a Christian, of thinking that God is really restricting us in a bad way. He's not. His love yokes us and restricts us in a way that is in fact the best thing for us. So if we can overcome that kind of negative way of thinking about our lives and the relationship we have with God, we can see the massive benefits that it has. So I'm reaching my potential, being the person I'm meant to be within the shelter of God's love. If I stray outside of that, it's going to be disastrous, it's going to end badly, it's going to be heartbreak and pain and things like that. So be thankful. It's a blessing to be yoked by God. God bless you all.